eager to see what comes next. It's always my favorite part.
Every time we're led to believe that From has finally given us answers to some of the more head-scratching mysteries of the show, 100 more such mysteries tend to spring up in its place. However, the show definitely didn't waste much time in revealing how Sophie is indeed the terrifying man in the yellow suit. This dude sort of undid every rule that exists in the show when it comes to its monsters, which pretty much means that Boyd and the 47 other townspeople are going to have quite a lot to deal with. By the end of the Season 4 premiere, this man seems more determined than ever to make the favorite part of this story come true. So what do you think he meant by a favorite part? Without wasting another moment, let's find out what the man in the yellow is really up to.
Wake up.
As you know, Season 4 picked up exactly where Season 3 had left us, with the old man in the yellow suit ripping Jim Matthews' throat out right in front of a short-haired Julie, who tried to warn her father after what seems to be time traveling from the future. That's further confirmed when the man in yellow asks her when did she come from this time, thus establishing the theory that Julie can in fact jump between different chapters of the story that's being told to the township. It's possible they keep running into one another every time Julie tries to alter the narrative, as the yellow suit man says how Julie's mission was pointless, because once a story has been told, it cannot be rewritten. In response, Julie simply vanishes into thin air. Now, the catch here is that before going for the kill, the man in yellow had told Jim how knowledge always comes at a cost, and that his wife, Tabitha, should not have dug that hole, thus repeating the exact same message that Tim had heard over the radio back in Season 1. Just that statement is unsettling enough to confirm that this guy has been lurking in the shadows for longer than any of us realized. Anyway, instead of chasing after Julie, the man turns to a dying Jim and mentions how upset he was that Jim would not be around to see the next chapter of the story, which just so happens to be his favorite part. We don't see the guy again until a car comes crashing right into the sheriff's office. The man driving this car was a pastor who got lost in this wretched town, along with his teenage daughter. Due to the impact of the crash, the pastor was fully unconscious, while the girl had her throat stuck in a very dangerous position, with sharp metal pieces inches away from lodging into her neck. As Tabitha rushed to help Sophie, Kenny and Boyd focused on getting the pastor out of the car. Ironically, we see Tabitha use the Holy Bible to prevent the metal shards from digging into Sophie's throat. Meanwhile, as Boyd and Penny pretty much break Sophie's father out of his seat, Sophia mentions how he suffered a seizure right before the crash, which basically means that the crash happened only because he lost consciousness. Marielle then gave Sophia sedatives in order to calm her down, and Kenny accompanied them both to the clinic in order to make sure they were alright. Now, once they're at the clinic, Sophia starts asking for a cell phone to contact her mom, and that's when Kenny gives her a short gist of what life is going to look like, now that she's stuck inside the town. Strangely enough, Sophia takes this information a little too well, and even asks Kenny to pray with her as she believes that God is everywhere, and the talismans protecting everyone also contain the magic of the Almighty. Even though Kenny is not a believer, he obliges Sophia just to pacify her. But as the night grows darker, Kenny dozes off, and that's when Sophia slowly walks up to her father and orders him to wake up. That's when we find out that she's not exactly the pastor's daughter, but rather the old man in the yellow suit. Apparently, the man had sensed the pastor losing his way into the township, and shape-shifted into Sophie just so she could exploit his kindness for her own gain and entered the town without raising any suspicions. Now that Sophie had no need for the pastor, she sealed off all loose ends by killing him. However, before she thanked him for his kindness and also apologized that he will not be present to witness her favorite part, which, as she grinningly mentions, is watching everyone tear themselves apart. So far, this man seems to be unlike anyone or anything the townspeople have dealt with before, because unlike the other monsters, he can walk around in broad daylight, which instantly makes him far more dangerous. Whoever he is, this man does not seem to be bound by any limitations, meaning that the rules that have kept people alive with the talismans, the locked doors, and the nighttime patterns might not matter anymore, as the threat is no longer contained. And if you're wondering why he does have to disguise himself as a little girl, well, apart from the fact that he's likely the same voice Jim heard on the radio back in Season 1, the man in yellow has also been depicted in one of Miranda's paintings in the basement of 1597 Borough Street. At this point, everything makes us wonder, is he really the true architect behind the horrifying cycle that plagues the town? Even if it's just a theory, it's possible that this man is the true controller of everything within the town, starting from the monsters to the rules to the cycles. Everything could be designed by him. I mean, just think about it. What if he is the one who persuaded everyone ages ago to sacrifice their children in exchange for immortality, just so the man in yellow could stay undead and powerful in the real world? What if this town is just a system to keep that process going, in order for him to stay alive forever? Maybe that's why new people keep arriving and get caught within the town's loop of chaos. I also think it's possible that the man uses the bottle trees to travel to the real world, and maybe that's how he controls both sides. Plus, I doubt he would want anyone to interfere with his operation, and maybe that's why he told Jim how knowledge comes with a cost, which in this context could mean that the closer you get to the truth, the closer you get toward death. Not just that, it's also possible that with every loop, this man gains more strength, as he personally shows up right when the loop is about to come to an end, or, as he says, falls apart. If the man in yellow truly is the force behind the monster's immortality, he can easily be tied to the town and its mysteries, from the very beginning as the one possibly pulling the strings all along. However, I do have one thought that I keep circling back to. We know that the man in yellow told Jim that his favorite part is watching the residents tear each other apart, and how it's happened before. This particular phrasing definitely matters, because he's probably not just designing the outcome of the fate of the townspeople, but also watching it happen on loop. If that's the case, it could be possible that instead of being the architect of the cycle, the man in yellow is actually trapped in it like everyone else. Maybe he's playing a role that he's already played before, the same way Tabitha and Jade are reincarnating into theirs. I mean, he totally could be a prior version of someone inside the town right now, but instead of being locked into the position of a good person, maybe he's locked into a villainous one. I know it sounds too crazy to be true, but really, at this point, anything is possible in Fromville. Moreover, as Sophia, the man in yellow is in a perfect position to mess with the townspeople up close by inducing paranoia, sabotaging their efforts, and potentially keeping them from uncovering the truth about how to escape the town. Even though Jim seems to be too dead to alert his family of the yellow danger, and present-day Julie also has not met him yet, I think Tabitha and Jade would have recognized something familiar about him because of their past lives. That's likely why he chose to hide in plain sight. By blending in as Sophie, he avoided the suspicion entirely, coming across as just another unfortunate person trapped in a horror-stricken town. Plus, for his favorite part to play out, the man in yellow would have to make sure that the residents lose hope, spiral into chaos, and then turn on each other so that the final portion of the cycle can happen. Honestly, at this point, the real danger is not just the monsters that come out at night, or the terrifying hallucinations that lead people astray, but rather the way the town is slowly pushing people to break and destroy one another. What makes this even more unsettling is just how easily this man could make everything worse. If the man in yellow can blend in and pass as one of them, he doesn't need brute force to control the situation. He can easily manipulate people and slowly drive them toward their breaking points, until everything falls apart on its own. But there's something even darker beneath all that, because when he calls it his favorite part, it's suggesting this isn't the first rodeo. The fact that it's happened before makes it far more disturbing, because it implies the repeating cycle of nightmare that's been connected to people like Tabitha and Jade and all their past lives. So yeah, this might not be a new nightmare at all, just one that keeps happening over and over again. If that's where things are heading, the emotional fallout could be brutal. Watching people who trust each other turn against one another would take the horror to another level entirely. This raises the real question of whether the townspeople can finally break the cycle, or are they doomed to repeat it, without ever realizing who this Sophia really is until it's far too late. What are your theories about this strange man in a yellow suit? Let us know about them in the comment box below.